Anyway, so Jess teaches junior high math, and she employs pathways. She does pre-testing. She does constant assessing in her class, and the kids were very glad that she was back from her leave. You know,
She has to be gone.
yes, and we're very glad she's back from this term.
So it was a little bit of a mess when I came back from maternity leave. So the first thing I did was I listed all the standards that they covered. I had them write down the ones they wanted to be retaught and ones they thought they were good. So the ones that didn't need to be retaught, the standard did practice with that to show me that they actually knew it. And the ones that retaught started on the practice with me. And I got a lot of good feedback from that because they weren't forced to learn again if they already knew it. So we did that first week we came back. Typically though, in my class, so I adapted this from the 4th through 6th grade math. So if there was some consistency when they came up to junior high, is they'll get a lesson over standard. We'll either take a pre-assessment or a lesson check, depending on if I know they have background in that standard, like it's building from 6th grade or if it's something brand new. So this one was statistics and scatter plots. It's pretty new for 8th grade. So I didn't give them a pre-assessment. We went right into the lesson and taking notes. And then they took a lesson check after the next day, and that determined where they started on this. So these are all different levels of practice they could choose from. So if they got lesson checks are usually no more than 10 questions. So if they get 80% of those right, then we start at that level 3, which is what standard is, what they should know, learn as an 8th grader. And then they just get to make a choice of 2 of those practices from there. So it's not that they have to do everything on this document. They're getting to choose what they practice. And they can always come to me if they have a different idea for that. So that's typically how the class is set up. And then we spend anywhere from 2 days to a week on a standard, depending on what the class is at. I don't know if any kid has really had homework this year because they have plenty of class time to work on it, which they loved, not having homework. And then twice a month, this is something I just started this semester, is they get what's called a standard check. So I make them take the standard checks they haven't taken it. So this is an example of one that goes with this pathway. So they had to take this after we did this, but then all the previous standards they can retake if they don't like the score they got. And with this, they get to choose the level question they want to answer. I've had kids answer all, I think there's 8 questions on there. I've had kids just answer questions 2 through 4. It's kind of up to them what questions they answer. So they kind of have a say in that. And I've noticed with like kids that struggle with test anxiety, it's really brought that down because they're not like, gosh, I have to answer all of them. I just choose the questions I feel comfortable answering. One thing that I am struggling with is with junior high, they're choosing some of them to do the bare minimum, like level 2. That's good for me. I don't want to try to push myself. I don't want to try something that's hard. So that's something we're working on there. 7th grade, they've been doing personalized learning for a while, so I don't have as much of that with that group. It's more so 8th grade who haven't really done a whole lot of it, but I've gotten a lot of great feedback from students on this as well. I haven't had too many take the opportunity to retake standard checks when the day comes. And if they're gone for one or they want to take it sooner, I always offer that during a purple time if they want to redo something. That's kind of how the class here in math. There's any questions?
That's okay. Can you highlight for us a few words how you think that work you're doing that you shared with us today will help us with our student achievement goals that we've established? Specifically number 2.
Yeah. I've noticed that kids are more likely to do work if they have a choice and they're not required to do the textbook every single day, for the whole hour. very few kids choose the textbook assignment. A lot of them are choosing the other stuff. And what this has helped me do is quickly identify the ones that aren't quite where they need to be and then work with them, which I think will increase that. Just being able to catch that sooner.
When you were referencing the only doing the bare minimum, do you think we need to increase the bare minimum so that everybody is engaged?
It's hard because some kids, like, that's all they can do, no matter how much you work with them, like, they just, that's where they're at. You know? The ones that are capable, I don't really know what the answer would be for them. If it's so I had, when I came back from maternity leave, I made all my students take the level 3 questions just to see which ones could do it and which ones couldn't. And so that might just be something I have to do every once in a while. It's like, okay, here's a check. Everyone's answering level 3. Let's see where you're at. But most of them, like, that's just on the standard checks that they do that. They will work for that level 3 on a practice. I don't know what to do yet there with connecting those. I noticed that more so after I came back from maternity leave, so I'm hoping to get back into the swing of things. This week we're starting a lesson, a new one. So I'm hoping to see a change there. I think they got a little lazy while I was gone.
So that isn't unusual. I mean, you see that across the board with kids. So one of the things that we have for our 8 professional development days, part of it, a big chunk was the habits of mind. And so 16 habits, and a lot of those habits are those things that we struggle with, right? The paying attention to detail, accuracy, you know, all those pieces, that those behaviors that we need to start focusing on. So as we move into next year, we have a plan of how we're going to be implementing the habits of mind, and we're hoping that that'll be that side of it. It's not the content piece, because the teachers can do that. It's those habits that we need to teach them that don't just start when they come with the 7th graders or 8th graders. They need to, you know, we need to start all the way down in kindergarten. It's got to be continuous. And so we have a plan, K-12, that habits mind is going to be implemented next year, which goes to the portrait of Brad.
Anything else? Thank you for your work. Thanks for coming back.
So this is how we are doing PCBL in the art room. Exploratory art, I have 3 groups for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes once a week. We started off doing an inventory, kind of seeing what mediums they had worked with, what they wanted to work with. From there, I did more of a gradual release model where we together explored some different types of media so they could see the process. And at this point in the year, now they come in and they're like, Mrs. Gramlow, I want to learn how to crochet. I'm like, okay, we will work on crochet. So they choose their media and then they're learning how to make their plan. Whether or not they stick with it is entirely up to them. Those that are crocheting realize it's not as easy. So right now I could have on Monday like 6 different media going on in the room, and every group project is in. So it's not going to look like their neighbors unless they choose make it look like their neighbors. And so in this environment, even though it's 20-25 minutes, you're finding that they are really pursuing their interests, and you're also having that natural like collaboration take place. So I have a few groups that have done group projects all on their own, what they wanted to do. And I have others, I'm like, hey, I want to learn this. I'm like, and I'm busy with somebody else. I'm like, hey, so-and-so did a really awesome job. Can you teach them these skills? So it kind of puts learning back on them, and they are confident. 6th grade, awesome. Can't wait to see them next year. 7th graders too. There we go. Arts 7th, 8th. I have a group of them, a new group every quarter. I see them 2 or 3 times a week. The pathways are great. We start again with the gradual release model. We'll go through like maybe level 1 and level 2 together. They'll provide their evidence of learning. When we get to level 3, they're kind of off on their own. So like the one on the left is our technical skills or our skill builders. I don't know what I would do without Schoology and our LMS system. Because I'm able to put in videos and they can go through step by step. I ask for feedback at the end of every quarter from them how to improve. Like, oh, we don't want these pathways. I'm like, okay, but do you want to get stuck with just doing drawing because I feel like doing drawing that quarter? They're like, no. I'm like, how else am I supposed to offer 8 different mediums without this having to back me up? They're like, oh, I don't suppose you can, Mrs. Brown. Absolutely. So it allows me to give them that choice because it's not a lot of time. We get through one project, or they get through one project. So with our pathways and personalizing it, I'm still able to offer all that choice that they truly need. On my next slide, maybe. By having our pathways and having voice and having choice, this is just the work from this school year. And that's just 7th and 8th grade. That's not everything. I wanted to put it all in here because it's all awesome. But you notice like we have like on the left hand side, there's clay, we have a painting, we have colored pencil, we have paper mache, we have 2 different types of paper mache because we had to experiment what worked best for their idea. We have 3D printing, we have digital arts, graphite there, and that's not even all of them. I have one student now who's working on paper relief. So within our PCBL, it fits so well with art because we have such a wide range of options and we're able to pursue what they need. And I love it. It's awesome. I start out every class with our learning targets. I have a week agenda, the daily agenda, what takes us on pace. And I've colored, maybe I'm crazy, but I color code everything. My pathways are color coded. So if they're on pace, it's going to match up with the pathway that they have. And kind of gives them an idea of where should I be at today. And it's still kind of a work in progress. I kind of go with how the whole group is going and how we're doing, although these snow days are killing me. When you see them only 2 or 3 times a week and you have snow days, you're just like, oh boy. So it'll be interesting coming May when we try to wrap everything up on time. In high school art, voice and choice is the best thing for them. These artworks are all from the same unit. We learned the basics of different types of artworks, techniques, and then they had that choice. So they essentially designed their own learning experience after I gave them some basic instruction. And they chose their medium, they chose their substrate, whatever they were going to paint on. They had to, for most of them, dive a little deeper in techniques. The one on the left she was working on stencils. So, and created her own stencils. The one on the top right, he did watercolor, never done watercolor before, but he was working on splattering, all this stuff. I had ones that tried alcohol ink for the first time ever. One took a week or more exploring just how to use medium. Which, if we were to go pre-PCBL and when I started doing choice-based art, all those projects would have been. It would be what I call cookie cutter projects. I am so glad that I have a little bit in this because this allows so much engagement and vested interest in what they're doing that they're learning so much. My goal for this one right now, I have 2 students. I want to co-design them. So they're kind of like, they're helping me figure things out. When we're designing our unit, they go through the whole gamut of inspiration, designing, and creating. You can kind of see their process up there, how they started and where they went to. That's my goal, is to do more of co-designing in high school. What I'm trying to do more of PCBL is a lot about getting community involvement and branching out further. We invited the 1st graders in. And then hearing all this school year, Mrs. Gramlow, when do we have art? I'm like, I'm sorry, I was needed elsewhere this year. We don't have elementary art. But let me talk to my painters and see if they would be willing to have you guys come in. So we had both 1st grades come in on a Thursday and Friday last month. Thank goodness, no snow days. And they were able to go through centers. And the high schoolers, they planned the whole thing. They decided what centers they were going to run. They decided what techniques they're going to do. They put together their supplies for their projects. I had one who went above and beyond, and you can kind of see like she made like little table stands of what each center was. It was awesome. She really took control of this. After this experience, like, we should do more of this. And I got some kids who are like, no, 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 we want to work our own stuff now. And I'm like, well, why not? Instead of a project, we'll replace it with you planning something and going into a classroom. So I sent an email yesterday. We got a couple who are interested, 4th grade and a 2nd grade group that are willing to have these high school learners plan something for them and go into their classroom. So real world experience. I love it. They're excited about it. In the future, I have next week a group of students going to the Dakota Student Art Exhibit in Aberdeen. They're going to participate in some workshops, visit with professional artists who are working in the field. So some real world connections there. I've had learners these last couple of years, but we really, I'm going into graphic design. I've had at least 3 or 4 students in the last couple of years who have graduated here and moved on to graphic design. We're not even touching on that stuff here. So North Dakota has teacher innovation grants that are out. I will submit my 2nd try tomorrow and hopefully get a graphic design course started with the programs that they would use in the field and hopefully a small print shop so they can actually print their design and disperse in that way too. So those are my goals. That's how we do PCBL in the art room.
Do you know if there so the Career Tech Center has high-tech equipment, which might have some graphic arts resources that could rotate in?
I haven't seen much. They have embroidery machines. That could be a way to program them. They have a very high-tech 3D printer. With some of the funds in previous years, I have 2 3D printers in my classroom, so we can do some. It's very basic.
I just wanted to make sure that you were familiar with that, and maybe they didn't know for sure they had anything.
I haven't seen anything on their list yet. Maybe like a laser cutter, but you only get it for a short.
Okay, so my question then is, you are having your students work with a lot of different media.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned crochet. Is crochet something you know how to do?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens when a student wants to choose a medium that you aren't familiar with? Is that when they go to videos, or are you seeking people in and have that
It's
skill?
really hard in this small community to find people who are confident enough to share what they do. And a lot of them, I've had one who wanted to try oil paint. So I bought a small set and I said, have at it. We used YouTube videos, we did searching, she searched, I searched, because I have no experience. So we searched out other resources to help them get over that hurdle of nobody knows what they're doing. And that's okay. And I tell them that. I'm like, Mrs. Gramlow, I want to. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. We're going to figure it out. So even like with your crocheting, the first one that asked me about, I'm like, oh, awesome. And I got some videos set up on a Padlet so they could access them while I was working with other students. And I sat down to help her and she is using her other hand. I'm like, I'm like, you don't have the same dominant hand as I do. So there's even like those.
Wow. Well, thank you for your work. Any other questions?
Like in the last couple of years, I mean, it's just exploded in her room, the things that she have there. This is totally what we want for our kids that are going out in the real world, trying things. So you make a mistake, you have this happen, man, big deal, you just move on and you learn something new, and they're gonna have skills that maybe go out and get a job, the graphic design. So it's just amazing,
So how can, what parts of either the habits of mind or the portrait of a grad or the student achievement goals, what do you think your work that you've shown us today is impacting our students the most?
Probably the habit of mind, and growth mindsets are our school commitment also. Because we talk a lot about having a growth mindset, developing persistence. One of the 8th grade standards is actually developing persistence or showing persistence, demonstrating persistence in developing skills. So a lot of it is already embedded because we are more performance-based sort of class. So a lot of those things are just automatically brought in and developed. Talked about striving for accuracy, going through the pathways. I had people who went through and they just submitted assignments. They're like, oh yeah, Mrs. Graham, I did it all. I submitted it all. I'm like, if you would have read them, because it was a week where I was hit and miss and gone. And I'm like, if you had read this carefully, you would have realized that you need to submit evidence that you completed the skill building. So we talked about accuracy and really paying attention to what's required, which is a skill, because if you go off into a job, you need to pay close attention to the details to make sure you are performing your job the way that you need to.
Regardless of if it's art related or.
Yes. Ms. Hackey's probably most hated part that I show for like developing growth mindset. Talking about frustration is I give them a house puzzle and I let them work and they're trying and I'm getting smart because I put double copies on both sides. And they're supposed to complete the puzzle and go for all these doorways, but they never can. So then after 5 minutes or so, I think you were in it last year, got to see that one. There's no way to solve the puzzle. There's like, I'm like, you guys might hate me, but how can we talk about frustration if we don't have that sense of frustration? So I'm trying to find teachable moments where we can do something and then have that discussion.
Any other questions? Great work. Thank you. Thanks for being here today.